So, okay, for people who aren't familiar, where are you from exactly?
I'm from the Antelope Valley.
Right.
Grew up Palmdale, Lancaster, all throughout out there in Antelope Valley.
Yeah, and that's kind of like, I always hear people sort of like...
Meth capital of the world.
Yeah, people like joke around about Palmdale and shit, and like kind of joke around.
They're not joking.
Like, that's where you should move off to if you want to be like a burnout head or some shit. So it's kind of crazy to me when I realized like, oh, she's actually from there. So describe what it was actually like coming up there, because it's kind of just like there's just not really opportunities. There's a bunch of people, but people just it's a lot easier to get into fucked up shit than positive shit, right?
I think that's just a choice of your upbringing and growing up of what you're going to get brought out there. There was absolutely nothing, man, and. I mean, for me, but maybe that's just because those opportunities or all those chances weren't in my family, you know, growing up. And I mean, maybe they were, but I was raised by my mom, you know, and all this stuff. And so at a very young age, you know, my mom was addicted to drugs. And so I started, you know, she's hanging out with these guys that you know, drugs and addicted and selling. And I sort of just like, I met my little group doing the same thing. And I left the house, you know, I left.
And so, was there any like organized white gang type shit going on in that area at that time, or is that not really coming? Okay.
No, absolutely. There was absolutely a lot of white power, and I don't know if it wasn't. I don't know any about that, but definitely some stuff going on with the white race. 100% dominating out there. It was all white race. There was very little, you know, brown people, very little black people. Those didn't come till later. You know, they just started doing like Section 8s and all this stuff. A lot of people I felt like were getting into stuff out here in the valley and getting into stuff in the LA, and they were coming out there to hide, you know. And I remember just being like, man, you know, I meet some people at houses and they'd be like, oh, I'm so-and-so from the valley. And I'd be like, you're no good. You know, if you're out here in Antelope Valley, like, you know, you're no good, dude. What are you doing, you know?
And would they like protest loudly?
You get a guy high on a pipe and something like that, dude. He's doing that. But I used to think, man, because I used to, you know, I meet a lot of these guys. I'm in the system. In the system. That means I'm living inside the prison system and in county jails, and I'm learning who's who and who's not, man. And and you get out, you know, and I be out these you know, running the streets, and I run into these guys from, like, you know, South Bay or you know, and all this stuff, and I'm out there in the AV, and I'm just like, what, like how, like you have to be no good, man. Like, you must have did some dirty shit out there in your neighborhood to be out here, you know. And then they come out there and they really want to be like they're somebody, you know, like they have a high title or something like that, man. You got to just shut that stuff down. And the whites out there at that time, you know, were dominating, man. There wasn't like it seemed like the Mexicans and the homies weren't out there yet, like they were just coming in, but they weren't really making a big hit on everything out there, you know. And the blacks, you know, they maybe had a small little, you know, couple apartment buildings and stuff like that. But
so it's not really like that where the white gangs are dominant in that area anymore?
I don't know, man. I haven't been out, and I don't live out in that area no more. Okay. You know, but and so it's hard for me to say. You know, to me, it's they're still out there. Are they still dominating? I don't know. The area has grown threefold since I've been out there running around in it. You know,
I'm always kind of fascinated with why there isn't any kind of like white organized gang presence in LA and shit. Like it just seems kind of out of the ordinary that there wouldn't really be that. And I know a handful of white guys that are in like I guess kind of basically in Mexican gangs or black gangs, but it's just not really that common. And I hear that if you like go to Huntington Beach or certain parts of North Hollywood and shit, that dominant. Yeah. I've heard that you can like see some swastika tattoos and shit like that, but I ain't really ever like witnessed it face to face.
Out here in the San Fernando Valley, you definitely can see that, and definitely over there in Huntington Beach, you can see that, and I believe that you do see that out there in Antelope Valley too. And and I just think that it's something though that like back in the day, like my boys and friends, you know, they'd be able to pull their shirts off and they'd be able to have the lightning bolts and the Swazis and all this stuff and white pride and white power. But I just don't think in the world today, in our society, that with all this stuff going on, that I think that that's just not acceptable, you know. And you get a lot more backlash to where like you do that and you're walking around with a Swazi over you, like people take it the wrong way,
right?
You know, and so for peace or for comfort or whatever, when you're around town, you know, I don't think you're doing that, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. But so do you think, like, did you gravitate towards that shit like right away in terms of like having pride in your white identity, or did that not really?
I didn't get none of that until I had pride in who I was and all that stuff, but it wasn't until after I got out of like my first term in prison that it really intensified it, because I went inside the prison system. I went in. I'm 18, 19 years old on the level 4 yard, and it sort of just like and it just sort of really just like just nail in the coffin. It just solidified it, to a point,
So all that time going to prison when you were underage, or going to jail and everything, didn't really do much. But then once you hit prison, it
did. But I knew this. I'm going in the county jails, and that's like a little battleship before you get to the big ship. So I'm going in there, and yes, and like the camaraderie between all the whites and how we stick together and all that stuff, and the rules and all that stuff you follow inside there is like that is great, and but when you get to prison, it's tenfold back in the day, because then you go walking yards and there's not just like 5 of you guys that were like in the county jail. There's like 20 to 25, 30 white guys, all together, and maybe a couple guys from Orange County. You got San Bernardino, because then you got all these counties together.
And so was that much of a choice, or was it just automatic that you were going to basically click up and get more into this like subculture? Because I feel like you could just be with the whites, but then you could also like be the one getting the tattoos and like really like preaching whatever kind of ideology they're pushing, etc. Did you like go head first into that?
I always loved, and still to this day that blows my mind. I have no tattoo, no ink, and it blows my mind. I'm like, damn, why didn't it happen to me? I don't know, like stuff would happen, a riot would kick off. I get rolled up for whatever and rolled to another dorm, or, like shit would just hit transfers. And I just don't know, man. Like, I promised my mom I want to get no tattoos, but I wanted that stuff because I thought as the years went by and I'm more into that, I really thought that those tattoos, because they meant something, like they meant something. And I love being in the presence of, like, I'd be with some guys and they pull off their stuff and they have like this sergeant and badges on their body. Like, if you've been around, then you know what that stuff means, lightning bolts, letters and swastika, teardropper, what all this stuff means and stuff. And so like they'd be able to go and people would give you that respect, and I know, and I guess I never really needed it. My size carried it, my size carried that.
No, definitely. Like when I even see like a young rapper who's like rapping and he don't have any tattoos damn near, there is like something in my brain that without me deciding to feel this way, my brain is just kind of like, well, he must not like have a whole lot of experience or whatever. Like my brain is just like, oh, this guy probably like is kind of green to this shit, because such a gigantic percentage of people I know are in gangs and shit are just like crazy blasted, tatted up. Yeah.
I remember sitting there with that guy that walked through, became that guy that came in that house out one day and everybody sat down, became one of my mentors out there on the streets, and I still talk to him every now and then today, man. And I remember sitting there, we're doing the stuff that we do on the streets. I remember sitting there getting loaded with him in his barn, man, and I remember looking at him, and I remember telling him, man, because he's blasted from head to toe, man, every bit of part of his body, man. I'm just sitting there, man, and I'd be like, man, I really want those tattoos, and he'd be like, man, I remember he got mad at me for it, man, like almost like checking me over me wanting to be him, and he's like, man, this isn't the life you want. Like he's like, I'm branded for life in this way of life because of these tattoos that I have, and he's all, it might have been fun in my 20s and 30s. He's like, but right now at this stage of my life, I'm almost 50 years old. He's like, it's no fun because I have nothing. I have nothing but these tattoos, and they ain't taking care of me. And we're out there, and he's been in this life, and like, yeah, you got that street credit. And that's cool. You get that. That's good, And he's like, but man, but he's like, deep down inside, I have nothing.